Russia seems to be hanging by a thread. When it comes to staving off a financial catastrophe, economic disaster seems to be the new name of Russia's war game. It seems human life is not the only casualty in the Russia-Ukraine crisis. The invasion has crushed the mighty ruble. So let's chat about what exactly made the ruble crash. To begin with, how did the ruble have an iceberg moment, a la Titanic? The Russian ruble is going, gone. Looks like the Titanic has found its currency counterpart in the sinking ruble, which has plummeted by a massive 20% between December and March. View this figure in the context of a 10-month time span, and you don't need to be an economist to figure out that this is the lowest of low the ruble has plunged. If you play daft games, you win silly prizes, and it looks like Putin stumbled upon this time-tested truth the hard way. The oligarch's misadventure in Ukraine has cost him an arm and a leg and then some. With Russia's energy revenue doing a death drop, tumbling down faster than Putin can utter ceasefire, and the ever-piling cost of war, things don't look too peachy for Russia. The battle-mongering country needs to watch out. If the ruble's rumble and tumble doesn't sound abysmal enough, the waning currency's current value will make you rethink your opinion. Currently, the Russian currency stands. You'll have to spend more than 79 rubles for one measly US dollar. The nation seems to be inching towards financial disaster. Early in April 2023, the ruble stood at 83.5 against the US dollar, its lowest ever value since Russia stormed into Ukraine back in 2022. Next, did Western sanctions rub the ruble the wrong way? As dismal as the ruble's current standing is, it is still a slight improvement from its catastrophic deterioration. Sanctions imposed by Western powers hit their target, making Russia's financial machinery buckle. The punitive measures had nailed the bullseye, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, making the ruble descend to mere 113. Whew. Reparative measures taken by the think tank at Russia's central bank did manage to put some pep in the step of Russians by infusing some life into the shriveling ruble. So why is the death knell ringing for the ruble now? Come February 2023, a fresh wave of sanctions pummeled Russia. This time around, the casualty was the country's teetering energy revenue, which cast an adverse impact on its national currency. China and India paved the way to provide a fast fix to redirect Russia's energy exports in their local markets. Sadly, the measure was not enough to prevent the Kremlin's oil and gas revenue from experiencing a whopping decline of 40% at the beginning of the year. Russian economists and think tanks have to pull up their socks and devise a better solution to pull Russia out of this economic and financial quagmire. To make matters worse, Russia has floundered and flip-flopped spectacularly when it comes to meeting its proposed economic objectives. It certainly stepped on the gas pedal, accelerating its ever-increasing defense budget. Russia's 2023 defense budget, which is roughly the equivalent of $84 billion, missed its speculated benchmark set in 2021, exceeding it by a colossal 40% increase. That's a lot. When it comes to nailing its revenue targets, the country's track record is pretty lackluster, only raking in 5.3% of its expected revenue. So how did Russia do damage control? To apply a financial band-aid to this festering economic wound and deficit, Russia is moving in to plug existing loopholes by digging into its reserves of foreign currency. These reserves mainly comprise the Chinese yuan. Reportedly, data from January showcases an astronomical sum of 54.5 billion rubles sold by Russia in the Chinese economy. The ruble currently stands at 11.48 per Chinese yuan. So what other factors are impacting Russia and the ruble's downward spiral? Among a host of serious issues that have eaten and punctured holes into the Russian economy, making it look like leftover prey riddled by piranhas, a very significant factor is the red-hot demand for dollars, as Western assets in Russia are being sold off into the hands of local investors. Combine that with plunging export revenues, and Russia has a ready-made formula for economic gloom and doom. According to Reuters, the Russian currency ranks third from the last globally, with the Egyptian pound and the Argentinian peso hot on its trail. Speaking of economic gloom and doom, the Russian economy has borne the brunt of Western nations' wrath since February 2022, which saw Russia beating the war drums to launch an unprovoked offensive against Ukraine. Things took a bleak downturn as the year 2022 depicted a not-so-promising picture of the Russian economy, with a shrinkage factor of 2.1% in its gross domestic product. The decline comes as a sharp contrast to the 15% decline forecast earlier. Russian strongman Putin, who had to finally swallow the bitter truth, recently acknowledged that the punitive actions imposed by the West might take a negative toll on Russia. But in spite of these dire figures, the Russian economy and ruble are expected to bounce back to a considerable degree as long as Russia continues to sell its oil and energy resources globally. Oil prices are once again on the upsurge after the decision undertaken by OPEC to trim the targets of production, sending shockwaves throughout global economic circles for its tenacity. The Russian economy might pull off a phoenix from the ashes act and resurrect itself Harry Potter style. If the word of Russian authorities is anything to go by, this purported change might reach fruition by the year 2024. However, according to experts, whichever side of the fence you are on, and a host of financial experts, the crux of the matter is not restricted to the ruble's exchange rate. The exchange rate might teeter-totter in 2023 between the range of 75 to 80 rubles per US dollar. It is the purported volatility of the ruble that is making Russian economists scratch their heads. In plain speak, that means fluctuations in the exchange rate. At present, the ruble fares no better than some shoddy subpar cryptocurrencies, with anticipated fluctuations of up to 30%. Moving on, did the sanctions open up a Pandora's box against the Russian economy? Good question. The European Union recently marked the first anniversary of Russia's full-blown war against Ukraine by presenting a 10th package of sanctions against the former superpower. The new wave of sanctions will target Russia's financial and military structures to not only tighten the financial noose around Russia's neck, but also to effectively impede it from funding the war. The move will also strategically deter Russia from acquiring spare parts for arms, as well as technological equipment. The package also bars and approves stringent measures against exports of dual-use commodities, propaganda machinery contributing to the war, as well as the supply of drones. Some experts do not share Russia's rose-colored unicorn and rainbows version of bouncing back from its economic crisis anytime soon. As per the World Bank, the 2023 prognosis for the Russian economy does not look good. If things really take a nosedive, the GDP might tumble by 2.5%. The lowdown on the Russia-Ukraine war. In the latest on the war front, Russia has escalated its missile strikes against hapless Ukrainian civilians in the last 3 days of April 2023. Russia has deployed the use of drones as well as planes to carry out these attacks. Ukraine is not planning to take the latest Russian offensive sitting down. Plans are underway to launch a strong counter-offensive against its Russian foes. According to Ukraine, all attempts by Russians to destroy their targets in the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, have been thwarted. Russia, despite its crippling economic situation, is not planning to throw in the towel anytime soon. Unless Russia backtracks from its aggressive campaign in Ukraine, Western powers will keep imposing sanctions on oil, and the ruble's value will keep dwindling. Let me know your take on Russia's current crisis. Like, share, and subscribe for the latest news.